worse and worse.
How right were they? Because they were definitely right about a lot of freaking things. You know what I mean? Like now, I guarantee you, there's people sitting there that are like in their 60s and we're like very like anti-hippie and like their ways, and are sitting there like, God damn, like they were right about fucking everything. Like we're all dying of heart attacks and they're not. You know what I mean? And like,
It's true.
It's true. Yeah.
But I'm gonna rip in a hole and like
rip into it.
I'm just gonna plug.
And just so y'all know, I am a salesperson, so me going through the logical transition of like why it might be valuable to listen to the whole Henry's about to rip, and why there might be reason there. That's where I was taking you, and also why even if you don't want to listen to his shit, you don't want to hear about it, why you probably should.
Go bury your head in the sand, bro. People just go bury their head in the sand. I don't care.
Yeah, if you're for civil liberties, if you don't want your children, do you want the school system medicating your goddamn children without your approval, like forcefully? If you don't, then you probably should be against fluoride in the water. Okay, enough said. And that's my what I think is a sound logical point to stand on before hearing the dark side of it. Right?
It's not about but dark's part of it. First of all,
it is dark when you
I've been studying money my whole life.
Right.
Money has always been something that's really interested in me because money and power all go together.
Just a little background on Henry. Henry was very brilliant in school. So we offset each other in many ways. Henry,
we come different paths to the same spot.
Easy. School was too easy for Henry. And
I was a hard worker as a kid. I grew up as a hard worker. I love studying. I love learning. But I asked questions a lot. I was one of those kids who would be like, wait, why is this? Why is that? And then the teacher would say, hey, no, don't do that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach everyone else how to do the class. So we all know how to do it. Now we can ask questions. Because if we all know and can pass the test, guess what?
Yeah.
Now the fun happens.
So I was more – I asked all the questions. And since – I realized that nobody had the answers to any questions that I really felt was important. I decided I would distract the whole class with what they think is important, you know. So it's one of the two reasons pod, but one just makes me really angry.
Here's the thing: is I actually love that side of it. And I actually have more and more respect for that side of it, and I wish. Obviously, I didn't go that route. Because I was one of those kids that was very in line a lot of the way.
Rebellion and change take both.
It takes both because it takes both going down separate paths to come to a very similar conclusion.
Well, and I think that your path's harder. I think being a little I think it is in a lot of ways, dude. Well, you know, because you don't just get to slack off, you know what I mean, and have an excuse for it. I was going to say something about Henry that he shared with me really early on when we were living together. Is Henry was like, and I'm going to say this to the best of my memory, but Henry basically said, so at a really young age, it was like 8th grade. I don't even think he said at a young age. He was just like early on, like in school. But I think it was like really young. Henry basically saw like adults so stressed out about money and like there's so much thought about money, but like whatever they explained to him about money never sat right. From my understanding. Mm-hmm. So Henry's the type that's like, he was literally like, well, I'm just going to figure out how money works and demystify it and debunk it through school, through college.
Through games, actually. That's probably the biggest way I learned.
And because it was silly, like the whole stress about money. And I will say, like, probably in America, one of the things that people are least educated about is money. I mean, you have all this access to it. On purpose. Because you have access, right. Because you have access to like a lot of earning potential, right? Like that's what you're not that much smarter for being in America than other places, but you have access to higher earning potential. So it's really easy for people to feel like, oh, I know money because I make money. It's like, actually, no. That's like being like, oh, I know how to build empires because I'm a slave. It doesn't mean you know shit about it. It just means that you exist in a place where you can be a slave. Like you can earn money.
You played the game well. You figure out the game. Not the full game, just the game that you see, because you see, hey, like, Sean, you're really good at sales and you're able to close and do well and make a lot of money because of your skills in dealing with people and shifting it so they can understand where you're coming from.
Right.
And all of these skills that we learn is I grew up playing I was a big RuneScape player.
I loved RuneScape.
You play RuneScape?
Bring it back. Bring it back.
First of all, it's actually, they have the game available now. and it's
on
the
your phone.
same game. I think it's on your phone.
No,
it's a time suck. This is the
dude, like, those things are dangerous.
You almost need bots to like do the mining and do the things. But
that's so tight.
RuneScape essentially had a free market. So
right.
the free market, you can buy and sell, you can trade.
Yeah.
And a lot of how I made money,
money
in the game,
was
I would buy and sell things.
Yeah.
So I would do something that I would call merchanting, where I basically
did this in WoW.
Oh, I did in WoW too.
I made way too much, and I just started a guild and basically just had stupid amounts of gold because like
it enables you
it's
to
a
do
free
other
market
things in the
in
the invisible world, just like our world now.
Right. Yeah.
Having more money in our world allows you to pursue certain avenues you wouldn't be able to pursue if you didn't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't need the money to get the money.
That's interesting.
But it helps the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so money is connected to all this. I think of life as a spider web. I think of everything's connected. Every single thing that you do, every single day, every single action, every single thought, every single choice is all connected to each other. Mm-hmm. So when you start to pull on a string, on a spider web, eventually you pull and you get to all the other strings that are connected to you in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. You get to that spot. And money was always an area that I had an interesting relationship with because I was fortunate growing up, and you were the same way, Sean, is I had a roof over my head. Mm-hmm. I had food on the table. I had tap water to drink.
Food in the fridge.
Tap water to drink. I was able to go to school. I didn't have the stress of thinking about, hey, am I going to eat tonight? Am I going to see my parents crying at home thinking? But you also don't understand what's happening as a child because you're oblivious. Yeah. You're young. You're basically from 0 to 7. That's when you're imprinted a lot of your subconscious behavior that happens throughout your life is when you're a kid. And a lot of it's based on your parents. Like, what did your parents have in relationships with, whether it's family or money or jobs or careers? And it's passed on.
It's very tough to riddle those things out. And I'm going to throw anybody out. I mean, literally, most people I think that listen to podcasts are they're self-learners and they're trying to grow and learn. They're investing in themselves, right? And that's like definitely where it starts. Like you have to be willing to take the time to invest in yourself and love yourself enough to to go seek out knowledge and let yourself absorb it and learn. And it's a beautiful thing. I want to throw out there real quick that it is a very difficult thing to riddle out the subconscious behaviors that you learned as a kid, like where Henry's talking about from that, like what was like 1 or 2 to 7 or 0 to 7. And then also like in your teenage years, like a lot of things get ingrained. So like you'll be very hard pressed. I mean, you'll find them, but you'll be hard pressed to find a person that doesn't stress about money in the same way that their parents stressed about money. And it's illogical. Exactly. It's illogical, but that's a great example. But there,
makes perfect sense.
Other behaviors, like whether it's relationships, like how we take care of the dog. Do we scream and yell? Like who's going to take the dog out? Or is it this loving, great experience? And you just, by nature, your default will be whatever behaviors you saw happen. And until you recognize where those come from, they're never going to change. You just will be whatever a product of your environment that you basically grew up in or have been around. And I want to put out there how awesome and beautiful it is for people to riddle those things out and how much work it is. Cause it's like, you may see somebody who's like super good with money, like Henry, Henry's great with money, super smart about it. And very, can be very discerning and logical about it. Right. I know a handful of people in my life that are the opposite of that and constantly stressed. And if I saw them growing in that realm, like I would know how big of a leap and hurdle that is for them. And I have actually seen one person I'm thinking of that has, and I think it's beautiful. And I know how much work that was to do that. You know what I mean? Like so I want to put that out there to like change your paradigm and your defaults is very tough. And if you do, like, so much power to you.
So a really interesting thing about that, Sean, is I understand money. That doesn't mean I'm good with it. No, I'm very serious because I say this because budgeting is very, very important. Understanding your psychological relationship with money is really important. And like in my personal life, like I used to work for a big corporate bank, and I was fortunate. I got a good job with a paycheck, healthcare. I bought a duplex. I was very blessed because I had a lot of options because of the choices I made to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And the finance path is a path that most people go to finance, make money. If you're in the finance industry, you're probably doing pretty well financially because that's an area that absorbs a lot of energy and a lot of money.
People want money they don't have.
People want money they don't have, or they want to be told, how can I make sure my money preserves its wealth? How can I make my money make more money? And that's a big thing with like index fund investing. There's a lot of the investment strategy that is out there in the world. And I'm not going to agree or disagree because it's cycles and it changes all the time. It's not always the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand how to save, you understand your values, you can make your money do more for you. Mm-hmm. I also see the flip side of that is you see all these people who have come into a lot of money, right? They won the lottery, or they're a professional athlete or professional singer, and they've got hundreds of millions of dollars in their life.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times when people get that, they have a tendency to revert back to a lot of what happened as a child. So they are going to buy their mom a house, which I'm not saying any of this is good or bad. I'm not saying that. But they're going to buy their mom a house. They're going to buy their friends' cars. They're going to bring everyone out to dinner. They're going to do all this thing for other people because they may feel guilty because they have the one who was successful.
Right.
Even though my buddy Jackson grew up just next to me on the street and he happened to hurt his leg in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hurt my leg. And he was a way better player than me. But because of whatever happened in his life, I'm the one who made it.
Right.
And this gets really deep because I actually think it's really valuable to share when you become successful. And in an ideal world in my life, when I can be completely financially free, I would love to buy people things. I would love to take people out. Not all the time.
Right.
And not being taken advantage of because you get a lot of cousins who show up.
Yeah.
A lot of friends who you did not know before. But hey, now. Hey, remember that time?
My family size doubled. It doubled. I didn't know all these people were my cousins.
Well, people are attracted to that energy and that vibration. And we've hit a lot of topics. And like, this is a very deep one that I could talk about for forever. And so I think about my personal life.
Yeah.
And I grew up blessed to have those options. My parents paid for my college. And that's something that a lot of people in America and a lot of people in the world don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in college, that was something that actually made me not as hard of a worker because I didn't have a financial value of what college actually meant. And I was one of those kids who, like, I did pretty well in school. I got to school and I had a bunch of AP credits from high school. So I was able to come in because I had been successful in high school. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I was lazy. I didn't really try. Mm-hmm. And I say this not being confident and happy about that, but just because of my relationship with my experiences was I'm a good test taker. I understand rules. I understand games. Mm-hmm. So I'm one of those kids who'll show up and get 95% on a test and I'll study for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm smarter than other people. It's that I have gone through the experience of test taking to understand how the system works, which is what our school system is. It's a system. Right. There are plenty of kids who got way worse grades than me, who are way more talented than me, who are way smarter than me in these certain things because they have that hands-on experience. They have actually done the work instead of passed a test that shows you did the work.
Right. Well, it's the school system. I think it's changing now, and there's great teachers out there that don't, that bring out great things in people, in students. So I don't want to belittle that, but on the realm of conscious, cognitive skills, if anybody's taking an IQ test, there's a lot of, there's visual spacing and there's or spatial reasoning and verbal fluency and problem solving. There's all these things that are very, very valuable. And it's not perfect, but a lot of them are higher cognitive skills. Mm-hmm. And then in general, there's creation and proofing out concepts and visualization, right? Being able to visualize something and see it in your mind's eye. Those are really primary cognitive skills, in my opinion, really important and really powerful, and will change the direction of your life by investing in those skills, right? Just like a game, right? In school, the best skill you can have to do the best on numbers wise is short-term memory capabilities. Because if you have great short-term memories, okay, no, please.
Yes, yeah.
That's the one I've always targeted, because I'm like, if you have, like, there's other ones that are great too, but if you have incredible short-term memory and you just like can like look through data and like retain it for short-term memories, like things that are retained for a short amount of time.
Your past test.
You know, yeah, it's not like, hey, I really need to know this and ingest this into my long-term knowledge and comprehension so I can operate. Like I went to basically a trade school to get my captain's license for maritime, and like you could pass those tests with short-term knowledge, but then if you forget it all on a boat, you actually are a serious liability. So some of the testing through the Coast Guard to get that is proving out actual knowledge, because like there's very few people, like, because the tests are like, hey, here's 300 questions. You need to get 95% or higher. And this is in a basket of like 4,500 potential questions, all different. And all with like secondary answers that seem like the right answer if you don't really like know it. So like for me, the only way to do that was to just actually learn everything. It would have been one of the hardest tests I'd ever the hardest test for me, but that's not saying much, that I'd ever come across, to basically just like short-term memory and boom, pass it. And then some of it's like problem solving navigation questions where you have to know how to navigate on the ocean to pass those tests. You know, you can't just like wing it, but
you learn by experience.
Yeah.
You learn by doing it.
So there's that, but like not all, but most testing, if you have great short-term memory skills, like that's going to take you farther than any other skill. And that's been my kind of like breakdown.
So I understand. It's hard to say, because I think it is really valuable to have short-term memory. I think that's a really good way to do it. I also think strategy. There's a lot of strategy
that's a good
testings that like, I'm a big fan. Like I like to apply the Pareto principle to pretty much everything I do in my life. I say this because I'm lazy, and I'm a smart person because I'm lazy. And my goal is to automate tasks. My goal is to, what is the minimum effort I can do to get the maximum result? Because I think about my life, and I'm not an expert. Like I would say money and wealth is something that I have spent a lot of time on. Same with self-love, self-acceptance, meditation, internal work. That's where I'm an expert. I'm an expert at being myself. I'm not an expert. Sean, you're the only Sean Corrigan out there. There's no other Sean. You are the best version of yourself. The only thing you're an expert at is being you.
Right.
The only thing I'm an expert at is being me. And it's a journey. It's something that it takes a lot of work to dig deep, to peel back those onion layers, to dig into your psychology, your subconscious, these questions. And I find it interesting because that's something I'm doing in my life, where I basically ripped off all these onion layers. I'm just like, where's raw? It's funny, the light's coming in as I say it. Where's raw, authentic Henry? Who am I? And that's a question that I think a lot of us struggle with, because we've been told who we are our whole lives by the people who are important to us, our friends, our family, our mentors, our classmates, our pop and cultural icons.
Definitely.
Everything. Everything outside of ourselves. And that
you have to identify, like you need to identify with a bunch of things. If you don't, then you don't know who you are. Like I completely feel the opposite. If you identify with a bunch of things because you were told to, then you don't know who you are. You know, like.
Oh, totally. And it's something that I kind of find challenging, because more and more as I'm a quote unquote conspiracy theorist, and I love that term. First of all, I took Latin in college. Not that I like Latin, but I like learning the roots and the foundation of words, because we use words all the time, and most people use words and they have no idea what the word actually means.
Right.
They just say the word.
What is conspiracy in Latin?
So again, it's been conspiracy, and I could look it up on Google to get a real answer, but it comes from conspiratore. And to me, the understanding is truth seekers. People who come together to seek the truth. And Aristotle said something a long time ago, and like this is across every culture, every ancient text, from the Vedas to the Bible, to all of these texts all say that Quran, they all say a lot of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said with the dolphins, like it evolves everywhere at the same time in a lot of ways because it's that energy frequency. But to me, you need to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it as your own.
Right.
And when I say that, it doesn't mean you believe every single thing you read on the internet. It doesn't mean you believe every single extreme from both polarities. But if you can't entertain it as a possible thought, then how can you accept any thought as a possible thought? And
seriously,
it's very, very deep stuff.
Yeah. And say that one more time. Say it one more time. Yeah.
So Aristotle said,
the part about entertaining, a possible thought.
Yeah. If you can't entertain any possible thought, then you can't understand and accept any possible thought.
That's freaking sweet. I think that's something to seriously take to heart right there.
Oh,
because it's huge. Resonates. It's super applicable to our time too.
Oh my gosh.
The amount of people that have been like, in my opinion, totally brainwashed into, not being able to entertain thoughts. You know what I mean? Other than the ones that, they think are their own, but it's really just things that have been
indoctrinated to them.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's like they're and if you can't entertain thoughts that aren't your own, I would take it a step farther and say, like, you don't have your own thoughts, because if you can't entertain thoughts that are not your own, that are opposing potentially, or allegedly opposing, right? Because a lot of them really aren't like this. It's not really opposing. And if you're thinking more philosophical, it's just thoughts. But if you can't entertain a thought that's specifically opposing, or you feel emotionally is opposing to your, what paradigm, then how do you know that your paradigm is from your own thoughts?
It's ironic that you say that.
That's great.
Well, I think this is something.
Thank you for that little treasure there.
I think you and I both do this sometimes. And I think we both do this thing called being a devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And being a devil's advocate is not necessarily you agree with something or you disagree with something.
Right.
But it's the ability to form the opposite argument of what you believe. Because if you can't argue from their perspective, then you can't argue against their perspective, and you can't have a dialogue.
Right.
And that was always something in school that we did in different ways. You did it more with energy in the classroom and being like, hey, guess what, teacher, you're teaching stuff, but I'm just as entertaining as you. I can teach you guys just as much in the real world by being a distraction. And that's actually a really good skill to have, because it shows you're comfortable with yourself. And I took it from the other route where I basically I intellectualized everything. So I looked at it from this intellectual smart standpoint. So I was always one of those kids who I listened to the teacher, but I also was like, you don't know everything. I'm going to find the things you don't know, and I'm going to challenge you. So you have to do your own research to challenge me back. And it's not about, part of it's my ego, and that's, I'm sure you're the same way. And part of that is our own evolution of the ego is a good thing and a bad thing. People say to lose the ego. And I actually think that's really stupid, because the ego is still part of you.
Yeah.
Right? All because I'm right-handed doesn't mean I don't need my left hand.
Right.
You need both your left hemisphere, your right hemisphere.
Yeah, I definitely heard this. Yeah, it's like a thought that's going around recently too, or like if you don't have your ego, like you don't really have yourself, which in some ways I think being completely blissfully beyond yourself and just seeing yourself in all people is beautiful. But when you come back from like those meditative experiences, or for some people out there, maybe they're just getting stoned as fuck.
There are different ways.
Yeah, I mean, right. There's a bunch of paths to the same ancient ruins, or whatever you want to call it. But when you come back, I mean, I think you're still operating yourself, like you're still living in your vessel, and you're responsible for you. And like Henry said earlier, the only thing you're an expert on is yourself. And maybe you're not. You know what I mean? Maybe some of us aren't, and we've never really thought that we should spend a bunch of time knowing ourselves. You know what I mean? How much do you think? So one thing. So I trained a lot of younger people, and not always, but because a lot of them just want to cling to some kind of identity, right? Because it's really scary if you're questioning like who you are. Like, and a lot of kids do it at some point. I think it's sweet when adults do it. I do. I think it's cool. Like, it shows like, a growth mind, even though I think it can be a rough process, especially when you're like in the workforce and you're like trying to make money for rent and
so you're surviving.
Start questioning who you are, and you're like, "Fuck, I work at this bank," and I don't believe in it, and and so I think a lot of people don't want to go there too, because it's a danger to the way of comfortable life that they've already accepted, and I don't blame them, but how? So one thing that I've kind of thrown out there with a handful of people that I think has been helpful, almost like kind of a little bit of a life raft, is, look, maybe, and I pretty much have always posed it as a question, like, maybe it's not as much about finding yourself or discovering yourself as it is about making yourself. Like, there's some amount of discovery involved in like understanding your nature, and like, but it's more of that, I think potentially, is discovering where those habits, nature, fears, and where your courage even came from in the first place. And, and then while learning that, and after, deciding what you want to do with that, and what you do with that knowledge, self-knowledge, is really what makes you who you are, and what you're capable of. And, I mean,
I'm very happy, because every single word you just said, when you were saying it, I felt that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, I could tell. Like, I love the yeah.
I felt that energy, because it 100% resonates with me.
Yeah.
And this is something where it's creativity.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between being intelligent and being intellectual. And I think most intellectuals are not intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because, to me, what intelligence is intelligence is the combination of the intellectual and the creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's the negative, the positive, the neutral. It's in the Kundalini tradition, Ida Pingala Shushmana. It is the snake. It is the catalyst. The catalyst is on the medical symbol. If you go to like a doctor, you see the twin snakes wrapped around a pole. Yeah. And I think what you said really resonates, because it takes so much courage to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this because my spiritual name is Teg Sandeep Singh, which is from Kundalini tradition, which essentially says that I'm here to do God's work by cutting through all negativity and having the courage to get through it. Why I share this is because for a lot of my life, I've looked at other people for acceptance. I've looked at my parents. I've looked because I had to get good grades. I had to work hard. I had to be smart, because my parents put all the energy into me. I'm the oldest child, to be an intellectual, to be successful. I did sports for a long time in my life as a kid, and I was really good. I was one of the people who scored a lot of goals. I was confident, but I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for my team. I was doing it to make sure we would get there, like we would make it to where we got to go. And as I hit puberty, and like I was in this program called Umpty Ump at the U of M, and I got the highest entry score to get in. I got the highest score. I got 49 out of 50. I was a genius in a lot of ways. And I remember going to the U of M in 6th grade. I'm going to the college campus in 6th grade. I'm a little kid. Like I haven't hit puberty. You know what I mean? I'm a child. Yeah. And I remember going in the car, and I was with someone who was autistic. And I didn't necessarily know he was autistic then, but he could literally name every single stat off the top of his head from all these players in baseball for years. And I was like, yeah, incredible, like genius. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's a nerd. Like what's happening? Like, why am I hanging out with this person? Like he can't be social. And then I showed up, and like I brought a tennis ball, and I was one of those